Hello YouTubers, how are you today? I hope you're all doing good. Today's commentary is one dealing with some of the arguments of the user who calls himself the Atheist Paladin. Okay, let's hear his first argument.
And you realize this is not a prophecy of Messiah.
I just love it when atheists try to expound on the meaning of biblical passages. It's like a plumber expounding on the techniques of brain surgery. This character, in his entire presentation, doesn't cite a single scholarly source to substantiate any of his claims. Had he bothered to do so, he would have found numerous scholars with PhDs in Greek and Hebrew who have written entire books on the subject of Isaiah 53. He would have even found Jewish rabbis, no allies of Christ as Messiah, but nevertheless expounding their view that Isaiah 53 is about the Messiah. Maimonides, who was called the Rambam, is one of them. Amongst the majority of biblical scholars is the consensus that Isaiah 53 refers to the Messiah. But it doesn't even take one with any kind of degree to dismantle this bit of drivel, and I will proceed to do so.
It says you'll be despised by men. Well, that doesn't really seem to be the majority of Jesus' ministry.
Here he tries to give you the impression that the majority of the people loved Christ during his ministry. It shows that Atheist Paladin has a pitiful understanding of what is contained in the New Testament. The verse was fulfilled in various locales. The main one, of course, was before Pilate when the crowd screamed for his crucifixion. Another was when the soldiers spit and smacked him and mocked him. Then there was another one where the Pharisees plotted to have him arrested as a lawbreaker. There was another instance where the scribes and the chief priests sought to how they might destroy him. There was another instance where the Jews sought to kill him because he had not only broken the Sabbath, but it said that he was God, that God was his father, thus making himself equal with God. And then there was other instances where he spoke in the synagogues. When they heard the things that he said, they were filled with wrath. There was other instances where it was indicated that there was a division among the people because of him. And even in his own hometown, when he preached in the synagogue, they were offended at him. And he did no work there because of their unbelief. I mean, so this nonsense that he wasn't despised is just that nonsense.
For basically majority of his ministry, thousands of people followed him around. They sought him out.
Yeah, I think if I had heard that this guy was going around feeding thousands of people and healing them, and I was hungry or I was sick, I think I might want to go get some. And the other thing was that they heard that he was speaking like no one else had spoken before. People back then didn't have a whole lot of entertainment available to them. And on that note, in fact, he was so popular that he made the following statement. And Jesus said unto them, the foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Oh yeah, those crowds were just filled with hospitable folk. And what happened after Jesus drove the demons out of the demoniac? You'd think the crowds would love him, right? Oh, here's what the Bible says. And behold, the whole city came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they besought him that he would depart out of their coast. Oh yeah, they loved him a whole lot.
And then he had a triumphant, quote-unquote, entry into Jerusalem.
This was right after the resurrection of Lazarus. The people had heard about it, and many believed that Jesus was the chosen one, the Messiah who would deliver them from the Romans. But after they found out that he wasn't going to do anything about the Romans, they turned on him and instead called for the release of Barabbas, who was a zealot fighter against the Romans.
Now, it says he was afflicted and did not open his mouth to his accusers.
Here again, Atheist Paladin tries to make the verse mean something that it doesn't. He wants you to believe that the verse covers every instance where Christ is confronted by his accusers. But it does no such thing. The verse in question is dealing with one specific instance where this came true, thus fulfilling prophecy at that moment. And that is in Matthew 26, and I quote, "And the high priest arose and said to him, 'Do you answer nothing? What is it these men testify against you?' But Jesus kept silent." Unquote.
Wait a minute, he was stricken by God. That's another way of saying that he had leprosy.
Leprosy? Man, you talk about gross interpretation. This again was about the crucifixion. God could have prevented it, but did not, because Christ wanted to die for the sins of the whole world.
He's equating being sick. Well, Jesus was never sick. And then it says,
the sickness in connection with Christ has nothing to do with physical sickness. It refers to spiritual sickness. The Bible says, "By his stripes we are healed." This refers to his flogging and eventual crucifixion, which resulted in our spiritual sins being forgiven. As for the comment of Christ having never been sick, it's just a gross speculation. The fact of the matter is that most of Christ's younger life is a mystery. We are told very little about his life as a child.
"He shall see his seed." Wait a minute, Jesus having kids? And he shall prolong his days? Wait a minute, that's not Jesus.
There it is not talking about children in the sense of Jesus having children through a wife. It is talking about him seeing his spiritual children after his resurrection. He was God in the flesh. His followers were the children of God. Therefore, he was their father spiritually. A very big problem with Atheistic Paladin is that he takes everything literally. The Bible is not presented in that way. There are portions that have to be understood as being spiritual in nature, and the natural man, like Atheist Paladin is, does not comprehend that. Well, the problem is that Atheistic Paladin doesn't believe in a resurrection. Well, sorry, but we Christians do.
It says he was cut off from the land of the living. Well, that means cut off doesn't necessarily mean killed. That means he was banished.
Banished? No. The meaning is not banished, it is death. The following verse makes it quite clear that he was assigned a grave with the wicked. And that just reflects the fact that Jesus was crucified between two thieves. And then when he died, he was taken down with those two thieves, and he was put into a grave. I think the grave is a bit more serious than being banished. Well, concerning verse 8, he conveniently omits the portion which asks the question, "And who can speak of his descendants?" Well, the reason they asked the question is because he was cut off in death. He never had an opportunity to have children. And I find it quite telling that he reads verse 8 and then skips to verse 10. He conveniently skips over verse 9 because he knows it shoots his argument down. The term, "he shall prolong his days." After his resurrection, he lived forever. I think you can say that he prolonged his days. So every portion of Isaiah's prophecy concerning the suffering servant was fulfilled by Jesus Christ. I'm going to stop right here because it's quite obvious this guy is not only being deceitful, as I have just shown you, but he is very ignorant on the contents of the New Testament. He is a straw man building machine, just looking for a place to perform. He has no biblical hermeneutics or biblical exegesis skills at all. He apparently is relying on this Blue Letter Bible site or some other atheistic support sites for his argumentation. Thanks for listening, and until the next time, Lord willing, there is a next time, I pray that the short amount of time you have left on this planet will be filled with the knowledge of God, the peace of Christ, and looking forward to the joys of an eternal existence in the presence of the Creator of the universe.